Labour Congress assures that nationwide protests will not affect businesses. Pension assets reach 14.2 million naira. Plus, oil rises for a second day on supply tightness concerns. This is Business Express on the network service of the NTA, and we are reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Musa Abubakar. Well, let's begin the program with the state of the economy. The federal government says that the debt profile of the country can improve with collective efforts to improve revenues and end the subsidy regime, which may cost Nigerians more than 6 trillion naira in 2023. This was disclosed at a consultative forum on Nigeria's medium-term expenditure plan. The Director General of the Debt Management Office, Patience Oniha, observed that Nigeria has one of the lowest revenue to GDP ratio in the world, hence inadequate to provide for infrastructural development on the long run without borrowing.
Why is the debt stock growing? You can see it from the presentations that we've been having for several years. When the budget is drawn up, it is drawn up from the budget. There's revenue, there's expenditure, then there's a gap that is funded by borrowing. It doesn't just happen, accidentally or without any approvals. That's one. But having said that, what are we even doing to ensure that even if you have to borrow, the debt service cost can be moderated? Over 60% of our external debt is actually from concessional sources. So we're talking of costs below that are at most 3% and are spread out over a long period. If we didn't have those strategies in place, the debt service will actually be higher. We would like to see more revenue so that the debt service to revenue ratio is high.
We got into recession and got right back out. The truth is that without the expansionary fiscal stance, which was only made possible given the weak revenue performance by the borrowings, it will not have been possible for the country to emerge that quickly from recession.
The Nigerian Labour Congress has assured that its planned nationwide protest will be a peaceful rally and not strike that will lead to shutdown of businesses. In a circular issued by Nigerian Employers Consultative Association to all its members companies, NACA says the protest will not further compound the economic fortunes of businesses and Nigerians in general. Oil prices rose on Tuesday for a second day on increasing concerns about tightening European supply after Russia, a key oil and natural gas supplier to the region, cut gas supply through a major pipeline. Brent crude futures rose $1.51 or 1.4% to $106.66 a barrel, extending a 1.9% gain in the previous day. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures for September delivery increased 1.36 rather, or 1.4% to $98.04 a barrel, having gained 2.1% on Monday. Now let's take a trip to the commodities market to see prices. Well, the naira has fallen to as low as 650 to 670 naira to a dollar at Paro market. We'll look at the dollar to naira exchange rate at the official window. Well, the naira hit record low of 670 naira to a dollar at the Paro market, also known as black market, this Monday. The exchange rate at the start of the week was 665 naira to $1 before it fell. The naira at the official NAFEX market has, however, remained at 430 naira to a dollar. The exchange rate is our focus on the program this morning, and our guest is an economist, Dr. Emeka Okengo. It's good to have you on.
Good to be here, Musa. Good morning.
Okay, when you look at how the naira has been performing as against the dollar, you agree with me it has been poorly recently. So what do you think led to this sharp decline, most especially in recent months?
No, it hasn't been. It has always been there. It's been there. I mean, it was foretold. We've always talked about this, and this has not come as any surprise. And I don't think it's about any policy miscalculations or what. It had to happen. It's happening, and it will keep happening. You know, because there's just one very basic fact. Your dollar or your currency has the value, you know, based on what it brings to the market. That's a currency for discounting and trading. Now, the naira does not trade anything in the external market. So the naira is not, to put it very simply, the naira is not competitive. All right, so, and as long as you don't have what you're bringing to the table, you don't have what you're contributing. Is that elementary?
But it's also what we are seeing in other countries as well.
No, but which other countries?
Stronger dollar, and then we see decline in other currencies, except for maybe Russia, which Putin has actually put.
No, you see, when you're talking about currency decline, you're talking about maybe very little percentages, 2%, 3%. Not in this case where you're talking about over 2,000%. How does that relate? How does that count?
But and I want you to mention, be also attributed to our appetite for importation rather than
you don't have a choice. You are import dependent. It's not about appetite. It's about survival. You know, that's what I'm struggling to tell you. You even if you don't have appetite, you're going to die if you don't import, because basically and everything you need, everything you eat, okay, everything you consume, ultimately, on the surface it might look as if we're producing anything, but when you look at the back end, when you look at the support input, you find out that they're all dollarized. So that's what the problem is. And it is because of what's just one very simple thing, because I know that might be the next question. It is because we have not started indigenizing, you know, our policies and our science and technologies. That's all. It's that simple. Until we get to that point where we know that our greatest challenge and the greatest threat to our existence as a corporate unit is that we have not understood that we must use a firewood. Let me use a local proverb. We must use a firewood in our backyard to make our meals. Otherwise, it's going to be tough.
Okay, what do you make of the disproportionate pricing regime on the black market?
Again, it's all about availability. Okay, dollar has become a commodity that's been traded like any other good. So it's all about demand and supply. Okay, now the central bank has tried to put restrictions, remove middlemen. If you need the dollar, come to the central bank and then get it directly. But even in doing that, you need to, explain clearly what you want to do with the money. Now, until you have this policy says we don't need dollar to be able to get those primary inputs. Until you make them. I was looking at the National Assembly yesterday, and they were talking about, us going back to cassava bread. I remember we spoke about cassava bread under Obasanjo.
Yeah.
Okay, this was 20 years ago. Launched as a major, national self-sufficiency program. I remember that President Jonathan also ate the cassava bread in effect. And then, 20 years thereafter, we're still talking about cassava bread. You can't be talking about cassava bread if you're not producing the volumes that can be able to feed your bakeries. And this is where your land, this is where your back end, this is where your science and technology also comes in, because it's not every kind of cassava you can turn into the flour that can give you cassava bread. Are you beginning to get a sense of what I'm talking about? So until you say to yourself that certain things that we must take off our shopping list, that we must indigenize. And one way to do that is, first and foremost, let's even have a conference on the technologies that we've acquired as a country in the past 40 years of our nationhood or so. Okay, let's see who is hosting these technologies. Is there any compendium? Okay, is there any place that we'll put them in? Is there anything we can do that we can start from, maybe what you call from the drawing table, okay, until you hit whatever it is, either tabletops or food or electronics or what. And a lot of these technologies you can just get for free from the internet. How come we are not applying it? How come we don't have a Nigerian television? NTA has been there for 50 years. How come we don't have, there's no effort for us to be able to develop screens, all these things we have inside this room that is going to be made in Nigeria, made from Nigerian glass, made from Nigerian, copper wires, made from whatever. How come there's no pursuit, there's no program to that kind of thing? We are still importing our cameras, we are still importing our light bulbs, we are still importing our biros. This is just the beginning, right? It's going to get worse.
But really, if this we're able to address the insecurity problem, would that really help a little?
It's a chicken and egg thing. I mean, insecurity is a consequence of what it is, that we're doing now. Insecurity is a consequence of import dependence. Okay, because I mean, the smaller you have to share, the less people are sharing it. That's what it is. Okay, if you're talking about insecurity, when you go into those places that they give to people, you're looking at pristine, lush grains. That could have been agricultural belts. Okay, that could have been industrial layouts. All those bushes are there abandoned for years and years and years. And every day we make a speech, we talk about 83 million hectares of land, 2% in cultivation. What do you need to cultivate land? Technology. And you can cultivate land massively. If you have or had the 10 earth clearing equipment, between here and Kaduna, which is about 200 and something kilometer stretch, in 1 month's time, they will clear they'll level it out. And then you can get your harrowing machines and begin to plant seeds. And then you can get your aircraft to start flying, to water them or spray insecticides or pesticides or whatever, or chemicals. So it's for us not to begin to, just what is insecurity? Insecurity is survival. To those people who are in business. Okay? But really, so you're the commodity they are trading. Can you see it from that perspective?
Yeah. Well, had it been our economy was export oriented,
yes,
we won't be having this conversation.
No, had it been our economy was productivity driven, we have 200 million people who purchase all the things that you produce here. Okay. Had it been people had disposable when they export. Yeah. You understand? We have the market here. Okay, people will be struggling to come and buy from us, just like people were struggling in those days to go to Abuja. People were traveling from all over the world to come to Kano to trade, because you had the talias, you had the grains, you had everything. The trans-Saharan trade was revolving around Kano. That's how Kano became, as big as it has become today. It was a trading route. People were aggregating. Ditto for furniture. People were coming from all over the West Coast to those markets because there was productivity. Okay, one of the very major things about the eastern part of Nigeria is that one thing you brought home was your wealth. And how do people know you have bottom wealth? You build a factory. If you go to Oshangota, there are about 1,000 or 2,000 factories all seated there, but non-functional. Why? Because you don't have energy. 2, because you don't have raw materials. Okay. 3, because you're not competitive. Okay. Now, the people who are working there, has anybody done a statistics of those who are working there? You go to Kaduna, you see more than 300 in the Kakuri area. Okay. Now, has anybody done a statistics of those who are working there? How are they surviving? What are they living on? What are they doing?
Now the CBN's this RT raised to $200 billion and 100 for 100 program meant to actually promote exports and attracted the needed foreign exchange. What do you make of it?
You must start. You don't build from the top.
Okay.
You must lay a foundation. Okay. I've just told you, if you have over 2,000 industries, and I'm certain that's very minimal, okay, not operating, the first thing you should do is to do a scoping study on why they failed. Is it as a result of input? So when you're putting your intervention, you know where to start. Is it as a result of low human capital or absence of it? Is it a result of transportation and storage? Is it a result of energy? I want to see that kind of study being done by the CBN, because before we start announcing all these, mouth-watering figures, yeah, but you go to get that money, you can't get it. So it's not about, you don't use money as a fire extinguisher.
So you're saying it's just not a money thing?
No, it's not all about announcing. It's a think through thing, if you may. We need to think it end to end. Listen, as a copper in the 80s, I had said, I saw this at Migratory people, and one of the things I did as a copper then was to start a program I called the Save Nigerian Child. And I was trying to say to them, if we could, this is 85, 86, to start, tying these kids to mechanic workshops, get to their malams, whoever it is, and then say, okay, when it's time for you to do, your teaching and prayers and all that, they can do it. Thereafter, attach them to a furniture place, attach them to a mechanic's place, begin to build skills of these kids. Today, some of them are in their 40s, some of them are in their 30s, some of them in their 20s, some of them not skilled. Ditto for the boys in Igbo land, ditto for the boys you call the area boys in Yoruba land. As long as somebody doesn't have it, there's that point in time you get to your life and maturity falls on you. Responsibility falls on you. You're no longer a kid. People no longer see you as rascally. People now see you as irresponsible. As a rascal, Musa was a very stubborn child, fights everybody in the street. I mean, you were popular for being rascally. Somehow everybody loved you. Okay, even if they thought you were a nuisance. But the moment you take that rascality beyond a certain age, you become a nuisance, you become irresponsible, you become a threat to society. And trust me, you might even get married and then start growing kids. Now, has there been any study, has there been any alignment, okay, to when we started losing it to the attrition of education? I'm just trying to say that we're not deepening the problem, Musa. We are looking at it superficially. Okay, now, the people who you see now, you're talking about banditry, whatever. Are they not human beings are they not Nigerians? Are they not?
They are.
Has anybody, how many psychiatric institutes do we have here? Are you sure that those guys are well? That you look at a fellow human being, and you're calling the name of God and you're brutalizing the person? Something needs to be wrong with you. Now, again, that brings, to focus the need for us to be able to look at our healthcare system. How many psychiatric hospitals? How many people do we go through these evaluations? Okay? A lot of us are psychologically, challenged.
You are saying it's a systemic thing.
As I'm saying, it is systemic is putting it mildly.
Okay.
It's a crisis.
But still.
It's a crisis. You see, it's a crisis that needs some very deep thinking. And we should be able to go back and say, okay, when did this reign start? And then start creating new pathways of alignments and reconciliations. Could it even be the state creations? Were we better when we were maybe about 12 states in Nigeria? These are all the things that one must interrogate. Do we even need to realign, our governance and administrative structures as we have them now? Everybody is talking about state police, decentralizing police, this, that. What about the psyche of the policeman? Okay, what training have you given to him? Who does he see himself as? How does he see his work? Okay, his service to his people. What environment, what work environments have you presented for
So
him?
all this responsibility, should it be government or in partnership with private sector, or is it something that I don't know?
All of us are
the responsibility is so much.
Yes,
so
because
much.
you see, it's
Individuals,
okay. You see,
collective.
I tell you how we operate in Nigeria. You have the community development agreements. You have the local government. You have the state government. You have, of course, have federal government. But in between, you have the secular leaders. Yeah? Okay, a lot of us have a lot of respect for our pastors and our imams. Plenty of it. Right? Is that true?
Yeah.
A lot of us have respect for our traditional rulers. A lot of it too. Now, how involved are these people into what it is we're doing? A lot of us, have respect for even our institutions of education. How involved are they? I'm beginning to now create this web you're talking about. But everybody there is government.
I think if we had to actually exhaust this,
It will take us 10 days.
it will take us. So thank you very much, Dr. Emeka Okengu, an economist. Thank you for sharing your thought with us.
Bless you. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Now moving on, we now have the story of a technician, Tony Okoro, on our Surviving COVID-19 segment, as sponsored by the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
I'm a technician. I'm into fixing about fixing phone, unlocking, and others. So I've been in phone job for a while now, over 5 years. During that COVID time is not something someone that will a very bad situation on that COVID time. No movement and a lot of things, income, everything reduced. It's a very, very bad experience. Bad experience. Something someone doesn't need to experience another time. If you can't open your business and you are not there to do what you're supposed to do, you will not get income. And nobody is coming to fix phone and others. And for you to even come out, there's no way. You can't even come out. There are no movements, even inside town and area. No movements. A bad experience. There's a little bit changes. There's a little bit because you can see people are moving. Someone can easily come to you and ask you, can you be of help? During that COVID, I learned a lot of lessons because during that COVID time, I learned that someone really needs to have something on ground, because if you are doing business and you don't have anything on ground, you have issue, how will you solve it? Because I noticed a lot of people were running in a task because people don't even have service. So it's by this of God, a lot of people survive during that COVID. Yes, actually I heard of that CBN, but something about me, all this government stuff, I've not been interested in all those things, because sometimes some people feel victim. Right, they will tell you, come and register this one, before you know, you end up losing the one that you have already. So that's why I didn't even put much interest on that. If it happened that I'm lucky to have that opportunity, there are a lot of things I will do with it. I will really start selling phone, not only to repair again, and accessories and the rest of it, which is something that I'm into. If I have the money, I'll do it.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
The equities market resumed negative to close the first trading day of the week on a bearish note. The all-share index dropped to 51,400.53 points this Monday from 51,979 points in the previous session. Market capitalization also depreciated to 27.7 trillion naira. Investors exchanged 98.8 million shares valued at 2.5 billion naira in 4,314 deals. UBA, Zenith Bank and Transcorp were the most active shares at the end of the day's transaction. Russian gas cut to Europe hits economic hopes and tells on global stock markets. Let's now see global stocks update.
Global investors are looking ahead to the Federal Reserve's latest monetary policy decision due to be announced Wednesday. Hong Kong stocks rose more than 1% in mixed-Asia trade this Tuesday as South Korea's gross domestic product beat estimates. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index advanced 1.48%. The Shanghai Composite also climbed 0.81%, while Japan's Nikkei 225 was in negative territory. U.S. stock futures fell on Tuesday morning after Walmart cut its profit forecast, sending retail stocks tumbling. The Dow Jones Industrial Average futures fell by 0.39%, S&P 500 declined 0.3%, and Nasdaq 100 lost 0.38%. European markets are rather cautious as investors digest the first round of corporate earnings. The FTSE 100 is higher by 0.42%, Francisco 40 is off 0.12%, while stocks in Germany are unchanged with the DAX at 13,210.32. African markets are set to post gains this Tuesday. South Africa is already seeing opening 0.96% up at 62,023.29. Kenya's Nairobi oil share rose 1.05%, Tunisia gained 0.28%, and Namibia appreciated by 0.08%.
Well, this is where we end this episode of the program. Don't forget you can access all previous episodes on YouTube. Join us again on Wednesday at 3 p.m. for another episode. I am Musa Abubakar.
NTA Tuesday Live, analytical, in-depth, educative and interactive on national issues, accommodating all sides of opinions.
We as a people have understood that we have to fight corruption before it fights us back.
Poverty has a financial index, so it should be fought also with a financial weapon. Give it to the social investments program. It has been a very courageous battle.
Tuesday Live, every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. Join us.
If you get to see the way telling about the post this, don't forget to send in your messages.
There's a difference between picking, chow, and ish. That's actually cool. The idea that is and do more with less people. If we have a better way of addressing these issues, taking care of. Congratulations, you were able to sign Timo Werner from RB Leipzig.
You take water before your workout.
Maybe I use that, but we need to talk to those that a lot of people don't even have resources.
I'm Cecil, and this is the Medley Show on NTA.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International. Your window through the world.
This is the network service of the NTA. This is The Breakdown, going beyond the headlines. I'm Shiro Morioki. As the power crisis in South Africa deepens, we ask, who's doing power well in Africa and what can we learn from them? Dozens of suspected Islamic militants have escaped from a prison in northern Nigeria, and the Islamic State West Africa Province, or ISWAP, has claimed responsibility for the jailbreak. Is this a new tactic from the militants, and what does this mean for counter-terrorism efforts in West Africa? As we celebrate World Conservation Day, we look at the species that are in danger of extinction and what you can do to help. Welcome to the program. South Africa has been experiencing power cuts for years, but the recent crisis has been termed as the worst yet. People in South Africa have been experiencing power cuts of up to 6 hours a day. The country's primary electricity supplier, Eskom, entered stage 6 of load shedding, meaning it had to cut 6,000 megawatt hours to prevent a nationwide blackout. Eskom has struggled to meet power demands over the years. This is because of increased downtime of aging coal power plants, delay in setting up new power plants, and the recent labor protests over wage talks which disrupted operations. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced severally that fixing Eskom is a priority. Eskom is expected to end the rolling power cuts following the announcement that there would be additional power generation units. Now, more than 30 African countries are experiencing power shortages and regular interruptions in service. Reports from World Bank shows that countries in sub-Saharan Africa have annual outages of 50 hours to 4,000 hours with just one person in 5 accessing electricity. Mel Miendo looks at the power issues in Africa and what we can learn from North Africa.
Africa's power problem is a transcontinental issue with almost every region, aside from North Africa, struggling with power infrastructure. In 2017, more than half of sub-Saharan Africa had no access to electricity. In 2018, the average annual electrical outages was at an all-time high in Nigeria. Electricity access rate in that country and in Cameroon was above 50%. In Ghana, it was 78%, Angola 32%. Niger and DRC were below 15%, while in South Sudan, it was 1%. Countries with the lowest average annual duration of electrical outages were Senegal at 130 hours, Mozambique at 80 hours, and South Africa at 50 hours. Power outages in Africa have been attributed to the underdevelopment of infrastructure and human resources, corruption and bureaucracy, slow economic growth, political instability, inefficient regulatory regimes, and difficulties surrounding the bankability of power projects. Nonetheless, there are success stories. North Africa's electricity access rate has increased from 96% in 2014 to 99% in 2022. North Africa has increased its renewable energy production by 40% in the last decade. Furthermore, countries in the region have increasingly been designing policies to promote energy transitions.
Kenya's power scenario has also tremendously transformed over the years. In 2012, the country's electricity up both the generation capacity and the transmission infrastructure.
We spoke to people.
After every 4 hours, we experience power outage. Some of us have kids, then it's really a different power supply, like a generator, to get your business going, and that is costly as well.
Sometimes it's this. I think we have to invest in solar power as well as gas.
Some of us were doing business, like we're doing ice cream, water for sale. So when the power goes off, our business solution will what? The soda will not be cold, so people will not buy.
When there's no power, then I have to stay now idle because there's nothing that I can do.
The availability and reliability of electricity services is crucial for economic development, but lack of this leads to
Unreliable electricity is undermining economic growth for a lot of African countries. Failing power grids have led to persistent power blackouts that range from a few hours to several days in some countries. Just how much is lost when this happens? In Nigeria, for instance, businesses lose $29 billion annually as a result of unreliable electricity. This is an equivalent of 2% of its gross domestic product. Let's take a look at what the situation is like in Kenya, where the national power distributor, Kenya Power and Lighting Company, loses 5.5% of annual power sales. In 2012, $5.3 million. Unreliable power outages cost some companies in sub-Saharan Africa nearly a third of their revenue, according to a 2018 study by the Center for Global Development. In some of the continent's largest economies, like Nigeria, Angola, and Ghana, more than a quarter of businesses lose double-digit sales due to power outages. Now, the hardest hit firms average more than 200 hours without power each month.
Now, to help us understand this further, the power issues in Africa, I'm now joined by the chairman of the Tanzania Association of Renewable Energy, Engineer Prof. Magali. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, why do African countries frequently experience power outages?
Some of the grid infrastructures have been constructed during the colonial ages, so they are quite aged. There's poor maintenance of the grid infrastructure, as well as very rapid expansion and also investing in proper infrastructure for the grid. Poor planning policies as well.
So what are the implications of these power outages on the economic growth and productivity of African countries?
There's a huge implication on the productivity of our African firms. Having unreliable grids make such that our companies cannot actually even compete to export our products. So it is a huge implication on the economy. And I think as per statistics, some of the firms in Africa have up to 31% losses on their sales due to poor grid infrastructure or power outages. It is a possibility, but we really need to work. As we speak, close to 600 million people in Africa do not have access to reliable electricity. And to be able to do that, we really need, first of all, to improve our grid infrastructure. We need to invest not yet, and by that,
on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet, and phone. Log on visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTA in the world.
Now, the jailbreak in Nigeria, there's been a string of prison attacks since 2021. Last September, armed men attacked Kaba and Kogi, the medium security custodial center. The latest attack on Kuje prison stands out because of several reasons. First, almost all detainees in the facility escaped, including Boko Haram members. Half of the detainees were recaptured, including one Boko Haram member. Secondly, Kuje is one of Nigeria's most secure prisons. At the time of the attack, the jail was guarded by soldiers, police, Civil Defense Corps, the State Security Service, and the prison's armed squad. So the Islamic State's West Africa province, ISWAP's success in attacking the prison shows that there was proper organization. ISWAP's main area of operation is Borno State, which is 800 kilometers from Abuja, where they carried out the attack. This also shows that the organization's operational resources might be massive. Out of this latest attack, the biggest questions arising are militants in Nigeria adopting new tactics? Is Nigeria unable to contain violent extremists? And is ISWAP threatening counter-terrorism efforts in West Africa? Now, Dr. Olole Ojwale is a security analyst for West and Central Africa at the Institute of Security Studies. Thank you for joining us, Doctor.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Now, let's just start from the beginning. Security analysts have described the Kuje attack as the most significant security incident in Nigeria recently. Do you agree with this?
I agree 100% with that, because you expect that by virtue of the positioning of Abuja as the federal capital territory, it ought to be the most secured city in Nigeria. Kuje prison is just less than, 1 hour drive from the presidential villa. You have all our security and military complex in Abuja, be it the air service, the military, the army, the navy, the Nigerian police force, the Nigerian security and civil defense force. All the security architecture are based in Abuja in terms of fortification and strong presence. So you would expect that this Islamic State of West African province that has claimed responsibility for the attack is making a strategic point.
So there's been a string of attacks since 2021, and now we see this latest one where almost all the inmates in the prison escaped. So would you say that the Islamic militants are now adopting a new tactic?
I think so, because the greatest weapon in the hand of terrorists is propaganda, and to also instill fear in the heart of the people, and to exert their presence that, see, we are around the corner here. So the latest attack of Kuje prison obviously is a strategic attack to ensure that, one, they possibly get some of their members free, and then at the same time to show to the people that we can carry our attack anywhere in Nigeria if we can do it in Abuja.
Is Nigeria unable to contain violent extremism?
Obviously, by virtue of the repeated attacks, within the last 2 years, I know the statistics that you read out at the beginning is probably covering less than a year. We've had over a dozen terrorist attacks in prisons. So, and then when you now combine that with a plethora of security challenges going on in the country, and the possibility of collusion, because you've seen that ISWAP, Ansaru, Boko Haram, the bandits, the unknown gunmen, all over the places in Nigeria, I think the security architecture is largely overwhelmed. And if we are going to contain this, it behoves us, it behoves the government to carry out a large-scale security sector reform that places policing at the center of that.
When we look at the attacks, is this reflective of what is happening in the rest of West Africa? Is there a greater threat to counter-terrorism efforts in West Africa?
There is a mega, not just a greater threat. A few days ago, I was just carrying out my whole research, and I needed to see how illicit mining of mineral resources is taking place in the Central Sahel. So I stumbled on a map that shows the spread of armed group in West Africa. Nigeria is engulfed, and you can see that is also scaling up to Togo, Ghana, which are coastal states. So I think it's a greater dimension of what is taking place in Africa, West Africa now, in terms of all over the places, whether it is Nigeria Republic, Burkina Faso, Mali, even coastal West African nations are not secure now. They are not safe as they used to be. So I think there is a bigger network, there's a bigger message that the terrorist group are trying to carry out, send across to the people, communicate to the global audience that fit into the bigger narrative that as this terrorist group are being pushed away from Syria, from Middle East, from North Africa, I think they have suddenly found a safe haven in ungoverned spaces in West Africa. And obviously, because of the strategic positioning of Nigeria, it becomes the primary target in this regard.
All right, you called it a mega threat. So can we find a mega solution?
Of course, two ways to go about it is the number one thing that I think the ECOWAS need to put up their thinking cap now. West Africa is no longer what it used to be. When you look at the sequence of attack in the recent time, Togo has not been attacked before it was attacked recently. Benin has not been attacked before it has been attacked recently. Ghana is also suffering the same thing. Countries that were hitherto safe are becoming largely unsafe by the day. And then Nigeria also needs to provide leadership in this regard, being at the epicenter. So I think those two things need to work hand in hand. And I think the last thing is that we more than ever before, we need so much of international cooperation support that we can get in this regard to get rid of this.
Dr. Ojawale, thank you so much for those insights. Very helpful indeed.
Thank you so much too for having me again.
All right. So Africa has long been known as the cradle of mankind and boasts millions upon millions of native species of plants and animals. However, as the human population grows and encounters these native species, conflict is bound to occur. As a result, some of these species are on the brink of extinction. Here's what I found out. The most endangered species of animals in Africa include the Ethiopian wolf, which is also the only species of wolf native to Africa, the pangolin, which is the most illegally trafficked animal on the continent thanks to the demand for their scales as a source of medicine in Asia, the black rhino that was almost hunted to extinction by poachers, and the white rhino. There are only 2 northern white rhinos left, both of whom are females. They are under 24-hour armed protection in the Olpejeta Conservancy in Kenya. The southern white rhino is doing a lot better. After a century of conservation efforts, 18,000 individuals now exist in protected areas and private game reserves. There are several community-based conservation efforts that are active in Africa. For instance, the Predator Compensation Fund has managed to bring down the killing of lions by local communities by 90%. Locals at the base of Mount Kilimanjaro would kill lions in retaliation for the killing of livestock. The fund compensates them for the loss of their animals, and the incidences of killing lions has gone down. The black rhino has seen its numbers rise significantly from a low of less than 2,500 20 years ago to 5,500 today. On April the 30th, 2016, Kenya hosted the world's largest ever ivory burning event at the Nairobi National Park. In total, 105 tons of elephant tusks and 1.35 tons of rhino tusks went up in flames. I'm now joined by Dr. Moses Telebatso, who is a conservationist and who will help us unpack the conservation landscape on the African continent. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, madam. Good afternoon.
So, human-wildlife conflict has been blamed for the reduction of numbers of several species across the continent. So, can humans and animals live side by side in harmony, and how can this be achieved?
Yes, human and wildlife can actually coexist. It's a question of how do we manage the land distribution vis-a-vis the demands or the needs of the wildlife resources in the environment. I think a well-planned distribution of land use that accommodates both the needs of the people and of wildlife is very much possible.
So let's look at the issue of poaching. A lot has been said about the poaching of elephants and rhinos all around Africa. So how can African governments cooperate with each other to curb this menace?
I think the first thing is that like I mentioned on that, the need for land is actually a critical aspect. Countries should actually look at the resources they have and how they actually benefit from wildlife through tourism and all other aspects. So they have to allocate the land for wildlife. They have to, first of all, bring resources to conservation, because conservation can be an expensive exercise if the resources are not distributed accordingly. So I think governments have to put more resources in protection of the wildlife, and also we need developed countries, particularly, to help the developing countries to be able to, balance the needs of the wildlife resources.
So we've had all the doom and gloom about, species getting decimated, but are there any conservation success stories that you could share with us?
I think one of the things that actually can help is actually more a positive thing, particularly in Africa, is that some or most of the African countries have demarcated some land, particularly for conservation, and put resources to that. I think if you consider countries like Botswana, countries like Namibia, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Kenya, and so forth, these are some of the countries that have demarcated specific lands, a very significant proportion of their land for conservation. And the efforts in terms of putting the resources into that, we have seen that also where we have communities like in Namibia, where community-based natural resource management has actually benefited conservation over time, where people resort to use wildlife-based beneficiation rather than livestock. So these are some of those aspects we have seen in Botswana in recent years when they have restocking the rhino population into the landscape.
And finally, we've talked about what governments can do, organizations have done, but what can we as individuals do to aid these conservation efforts?
Yeah. I think maybe we need to start at the global level. I think the global community first, if I go to individuals, has to accept that we need to work hand in hand. People have been talking about this, trying to balance the resources for wildlife conservation. We need the global community to support that. We need environmental education. We need to capacitate our people to understand what their roles are and their actions and what they can result in. So individuals need to understand that we need to live with wildlife, not only for our own benefit, for the benefit of the global community, for the benefit of the wildlife, and also for the ecosystem interdependence that we have. And we need to also, those that have the education, need to educate their peers, their families, and their relatives to understand why we push for environmental conservation and wildlife conservation, particularly for the endangered species, and why the need for why should we avoid extinction of these populations. We need to continue with some of this education, and individuals need to play a role in that particular aspect.
All right, Dr. Moses, thank you so much for those insights. Now, let's get into some commonly held myths about animals and conservation. First, it is said that it is better for elephants to be held in captivity than for them to be in the wild, as they are vulnerable to poachers. This is untrue. Captive elephants have a life expectancy of 40 years, while in the wild, they are known to live up to 70 years. One of the biggest myths about sharks is that they are man-eaters. This fear of sharks has allowed people to believe that they are threatened by the presence of sharks and that killing them is in some way justified. The sad reality is that for every one human who's killed by a shark, about 2 million sharks are killed by humans. And finally, you know the common saying, burying one's head in the sand like an ostrich. Well, those pictures you see online of ostriches with their heads in the sand aren't what you may think. Ostriches don't bury their heads in the sand to hide from predators, but will instead either run or flop on the ground and flatten their heads to blend in with the random vegetation in their surroundings. Ostriches do, however, use their beaks to help dig holes to make nests and hide their eggs in. We've come to the end of this week's program, but the conversation continues online. Reach us at BBC Africa and at Shiromorioki on Twitter. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
If you get to see the way telling about the post this, don't forget to send in your messages.
There's a difference between picking, child, and issue. That's really cool. The idea that is can do more with less people. If we have a better way of addressing these issues, taking care of. Congratulations, you were able to cite Udenwa from RB website.
Take water before you walk out.
People have used that phone, really TikTok to those that a lot of people don't even have resources.
I'm Cecil, and this is the Medley Show on NTA.
Along a flyway, seasonally, birds migrate often north and south between breeding and wintering grounds. Many species migrate, and these occur naturally on one hand, even though out of necessity compelled by other environmental factors on the other hand. This migration carries high cost in predation and mortality, including hunting by humans. Migration is driven primarily by availability of food. It occurs mainly in the northern hemisphere, where birds are funneled onto specific routes by natural barriers such as the Mediterranean and Caribbean seas. Migration dates back to about 3,000 years. Every year, on the 9th of May, the United Nations celebrate World's Migratory Birds Day to create awareness and promote safety of birds that migrate. During flight, some birds become incapacitated and are unable to continue the flight, which explains why sometimes we wake up to the sight of rare species of birds in our compounds. What are we supposed to do should this happen? Globally speaking, in other parts of the world, value is attached to this species of bird, even though that cannot be said about most African countries, Nigeria inclusive, where these birds are hunted down either for food or sold on the market to make money.
I am Elizabeth Amad. I am here to talk about facts. There is so much misinformation and distortion out there, especially on the social media. All it takes is just a click and the fake.
My job is to go out there and comb for factual news and information, just the way it is, all in the interest of the nation.
Beware of fake news. Don't be a victim. Stay tuned to the NTA.
Especially at this time of the coronavirus pandemic.
My name is Nnamdi Achikpo.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Well, there's a variety of things. I think first of all, we have to go back to you are very well known for teaching skills. Your students speak a whole lot about you, Miss Nigeria competition.
Let's pick them up. Let's take them back to Nigeria and let's teach them a different kind of job.
Hello, it's always a pleasure to have you with us on the program, The Woman. My name is Elizabeth Amai, and I have a special guest for you today. No other than someone who's created history somehow for a particular people, and of course for us to be our guest today. Who is my guest? Your guest is as good as mine. Let's take a break and I'll introduce her. In 1999, history was readjusted. Elections were conducted and someone came victorious. We were jubilated for the governor at the time, but looking back, real deep, we found out that his success did not happen or could have happened if there was not the woman. The woman is my guest for today. Join me as I welcome Professor Teresa Aboma Udenwa. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I tried to come around that period to say, it didn't happen the first day, but I know that eventually I came to the State House and had a conversation on there was Faces of a Woman.
Okay.
And I joined to have you.
Yeah, I do remember.
So I recently, President said he can't wait to be the ex-president, and I said, wow, he just reflected what I always think about. You're the ex now. How has it been being relaxed?
It's quite a journey, really. And sometimes it's not that you actually you go for it, but somehow that what do I say, that post, that authority is somehow thrust upon you, and you cannot refuse. You cannot just say no. So it's really been a long journey from the world of politics in our country, and right now back to the world of academics, where I started from. So it's not really easy being a politician in our country. I believe it's the same in other countries, because you have to cope with a lot of things. Out there, you are no longer just that family person only interested in what happens in your family or your people around you. but you are now for the people, the whole people. Being the governor of a state, you are governor for everybody. I remember my husband once saying that. So being in that life is not easy. For sure, some people will like you. Sure, some others will not like you. Some may not even be, they are neither here nor there. So you find yourself every time being on your toes, trying to make sure that at least, as far as is humanly possible, you satisfy the needs of the majority.
You said your husband said he is governor for all.
Yes.
And I also know that as the first lady of the state, you're also the mother
of
everybody.
Yes.
You know, and I have 3 children. Sometimes it's difficult trying to make sure the 3 of them are satisfied. Like imagine you're doing the population in your state, being mother to all. How were you able to, you know, put equity, you know, justice to all of your children at the time?
I remember it was in the year 2000 that I established a foundation, Heartland Child Care Foundation, which of course is still working today.
That's cool.
Yes, because today.
Let me ask you about that.
Yeah, because today that foundation, we have like 50 undergraduates on scholarship. That's what we've been doing since 2000. So I use that foundation as much as is possible to really reach out to the people. And of course, I also remember it was in the process of reaching out that I somehow established a program that is still ongoing in the state. We call it Imo Women's Day. That we celebrate the first week of December every year, whereby we gather all women as much as possible. Not everybody can come up from all the 27 local governments of Imo State to be part of the celebration. And we use the August meeting to be able to reach out to as many communities as we can.
You know, you talked about this August meeting. Somebody once asked me what actually goes on there, because some people think that's where women sit down to discuss how to deal with their husband.
No.
What actually goes
We're far from that. In August meeting, what we normally do is that we remember in August, it's been there. This August meeting has been there a long time ago in our traditional setting. Whereby by August we are finished planting and everything, harvesting. Women from all over the cities where they are living will come back home and have a meeting with the women at home on how to get themselves involved in developmental activities in the community. And women enjoyed it. And so for some people now they say, it's the time we ask for new rappers and this and that. So during that time, what I tried to do was to let the women know that this is the purpose. The purpose is for development of our cities and not just to show off. But what if we use it to show off? What does it really matter? Women should be allowed sometimes to express themselves. There is no harm to it. So the August meeting is not just for showing off or demanding money. No, it's for helping the rural communities, to catch up with the times. That's what we are doing there. So these were the channels I used to be able to reach out to as many people as possible. Because sitting there, the government has, not everybody can come to government house to see you. We don't even allow them to enter the gate and all that. So, and then they go out to meet them and interact with them, especially the less privileged ones. We used to have hospital visits when you go and you see people who cannot pay their bill, and sometimes the hospital detains them, and this is something you can help offset. I remember my foundation also helps equip the children's ward in the hospital at all, the National General Hospital at all. My foundation, the Alan Jacket, we had to equip the children's world, to make it better. So these were the things we are doing to reach out to as many people, and I don't regret it one bit. Okay. And I feel happy. I thank God that I had the opportunity, and I did use it.
I wish every other person would pick up from that and do things for posterity.
Yeah.
Now you were done and dusted with it. I don't know if you're dusted with that. Thank you very much for practice.
Yeah.
But at least you were done with that phase. And you went back to the classroom. That's for me quite great. They say once a teacher, always a teacher.
Yeah.
How was it for you fitting back after 8 years without being in the classroom?
Before my husband won the election, I was a lecturer with Rivers State University. Actually, at that time, I was the head of the Department of Banking and Finance. Before I took my leave of absence, something happened. I don't forget it over there. The day after the election, I came back to school. After the election, they were sworn in some months later. So the first time I came back to school after the election to teach. Yes. Immediately I walked into the classroom, everybody stood up and started the national anthem. Wow, I was taken aback. I was so shocked. So when after that election, I had to take my leave of absence for the first 4 years. Mm-hmm. And when it expired, so to say, I renewed it. Yes. And within that period, in 2007, I got my PhD. Within 2007, that's when I got my PhD. So when we are done with the elections, I went back. With the governorship. Mm-hmm. In 2008, I went back to.
So while you were in office, you were still studying for your PhD?
Sure.
Oh, great.
Sure. Because what really happened was I had to defer my PhD because I was made the head of department. The VC then appointed me head of department even as a student, a doctoral student. But you can't be a student and be a Senate member, so I had to defer. So when I now got to Owerri as a wife of the governor, after about the first 2-3 years, I wrote back to the university and completed my PhD. So when we finished governorship, I now went back to UST. Then my husband became a minister for Commerce and Industries. So we had to somehow relocate to Abuja. That was how I now had to transfer my services from Rivers State University to Nasarawa State University in 2011. So I came to Nasarawa State University. And I thank God I did that. Because up to today, some people still walk into my office and try to embarrass me. I learned you are here. I heard you are here. You are first lady. I say yes. I can't imagine it. So I say yes, I'm here. This has been my first love, teaching. So I'm back to it.
It's not.
Yes. So
you went out to get your professorial,
Yes, I was there in joined them in 2011 as a senior lecturer. By 2013, I got my associateship. I became an associate professor. And by 2016, I became a full-fledged professor, having passed through the drilling, the test by day and PC and all that. So I became a professor in 2016. And currently, I'm the head of Department of Banking and Finance.
I was trying to follow you up. From secondary, university first degree, second degree, 10th degree.
Yes.
You kept maintaining economics, banking and finance.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm sure in this house, before I spend money, I'll have to write some,
And, my husband is a chartered accountant.
It's a problem. So before I know any expenditure, I have to go and bring list.
So I used to tell him, all you have to do is to calculate all what people have spent. So he's a chartered accountant. I am an economist, financial economist, because I've been between economics and finance all the time. Incidentally, our children, I don't think, but only one that tried to look into economics, but that's from the computer side of it, the current thing. Otherwise, all the others, one is a medical doctor, 2 of them are lawyers, and the other 3 are engineers, including the computer scientists. So that is it. Yeah, we take care of people's money.
You take care.
We advise them financially.
There were some jokes that they were cracked as kids. Your daddy will ask you list of books. You write advance.
Yes.
Then the other it write Oxford.
Yes.
Then under it write dictionary. That's
3 for 1.
So money for this thing. So for your kind of family, that cannot happen.
No.
Speaking about family, really, 6 children, and that's a whole lot.
Yeah.
You don't even look like it. I am very pleased. I knew when they were
small kids,
getting married and all of that.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, almost everybody is out of the house.
Yeah.
So how do you cope?
Well, it's like
after having large family.
Yeah, that's how life is. You are reversing back. You are reversing. You are going back as if you are going back to the beginning. In the beginning, it was just me and my husband, and so it is. Currently, the children are grown up and they are all on their own. They are raising their families, and
it's back to
gradually is turning to just being the 2 of us. But that is it, because right now we have grandchildren, we have daughters-in-law, we have sons-in-law. So so to say, it's a larger family now.
Yes.
Never mind that all of us are not living under one roof, but it's a much larger family now.
Because you're still in the teaching line,
yes,
you will have even bigger family because all the students are your children.
Yes, that again is something that I love much and keeps me going. Right now in the university, we have the undergraduates, then we have the postgraduates. With the undergraduates, I know how I deal with them. It's mommy, but I go tough on them, but somehow I also blend and try to do it their way, even though I can't.
To master some of their languages.
Of course,
some of their songs.
Of course.
Which of them have you mastered?
No, we do. No. Sincerely speaking, they do certain things you will not really like, so to say. I will scold them. I will call the student to my office, and I will tell him exactly what I feel. And of course, I'll give the students a punishment for that, whatever it is. Do this work or do that work or do that. And then they go back and they come back and tell you, Mommy, I'm sorry. I wouldn't do it this way. You didn't do it. Then when you get to the PhD candidates, you see fellows, some even as old as myself, and we don't have to do it running around. We sit down and we talk. Adults, exactly. Adults, one-on-one. And so the whole thing, you see, the university is a microcosm of the society.
Exactly.
You see all parts of the society, and I feel happy, being in that area. And of course, my colleagues, I thank them. Many of them, some will look at you, a first lady. They will like to keep on their own, but others will just empty of everybody. So I have a very large family, both out there in the society. You've not even thought of my extended family back home. They are still there. You get home, everybody comes around to see what is there, what's happening, what's going on. You go to the school, everybody is there. So So
that's a good one. No very moment. Anyway, sometimes we sit back, those of us who are not in politics and we're not celebrities, we're just regular junior in the society. We keep imagining, wandering around the lives of the celebrities, what do they do and all of that. And I just want to ask, maybe one-on-one, maybe off camera. When you are not doing celebrity, first lady, and all of that, at home, how do you relate with chairman here? Do you still find time to relate as husband and wife, as play around?
Wow. This man here cracks a lot of jokes. Very particular jokes that when we crack it outside, people close to us understand, they know what it means. So we really, no. We enjoy ourselves so much. And let me tell you, we've come to understand ourselves so much that I can't say he cannot do anything that will take me unawares. Neither can I do anything that will take him unawares. We've come to understand ourselves that much. So we are, especially now that is more or less, most of the time is two of us. We have to keep life going, by cracking all those jokes again.
That's a good one.
When you are trying to tell us you know too much. Migratory. So you get sense. Okay, we'll watch you and see how it matures. And those sort of things. So we really, we get on very well.
It's beautiful. It's fun knowing that as much as you grew in the limelight, you also grew in your relationship. Because we often hear about people breaking away just because they think they have arrived. But the home front is messed up at the end of the day. I'm glad to know that. Now, we're celebrating women. It's Women Day, and a whole lot is going on. I'd like to have your shout out for women. Words of encouragement, and of course, words of praises, because it is really us, the Amazon.
You said it right, Amazons. Because women, they are the, quote, pillars of the family. Women hold the stitches that knit the family together. So as much as possible, we women should always try to make our families something worthwhile, something people can look up to. And as each and every one of us does that, the entire society will be good. Never mind, women go through a lot of stress. They go through a lot of problems. It's not easy looking after the children, the family, not just the children. You have your children to look after. You have your old parents to look after. You have your parents-in-law to look after. And at the same time, you are trying to make a living for the family, to have a career. It is not easy. But
you have the husband to look at.
Yes, exactly. The husband is part of the children now. It's part of the babies in the house you have to cater for. But you know that at the end of the day, when you do this well, you'll be able to relax and say yes. Feel happy within you. Not necessarily relaxing, you feel happy and have time for yourself. So I wish our women the very best life can offer, because many of us will work for it. So that's my wish for every woman.
Thank you so much. It's a lovely wish for us to enjoy ourselves. And of course, do it involving our husbands and our children. It's the woman, and I've been having fun, really. I don't even feel like I've been having an interview, because my guest is a bundle of fun to be with. Right from, meeting the good morning. It's all joy, all through. It's often said that people who are teachers, a lot of time, may not have too much activities for relaxation, because teaching on its own, playing with the students are still part of relaxation. But I don't know about you. You know that you're a very lively person. What do you do for to unwind, so to speak?
Myself and my husband, we love dancing, music.
So what kind of music do you dance?
the old tunes, if you don't mind. So whenever have the opportunity, you will see us dance a lot. These days, you see me on my iPad. I play a lot of games, even with my grandchildren. So I play games.
What is good for the goose?
I play with them, and sometimes the small boys, small boys, say they will beat me at the game. I say no, so we play.
So who gets to beat them?
When it comes to their own games, type of game, they will beat me. But when it comes to mine, I'll beat them. Then I also, like now, my trainer comes twice a week, so I do some exercises. Before I used to do it on my own, but sometimes I said, no, let me get a trainer that will just make it a little more, address to certain issues, how to stretch your bones and do this. So I do my exercises, the training, twice a week. And that keeps me fit going. And of course, you can't rule out the fact that I read and read and read. Now with our phones and everything, download as many articles as you can in finance and read all day.
I thought you were saying broadcasting.
That's my area, finance. I do a lot of that. I do a lot of that reading.
There's something to say, onye ego so that's if you don't have money, you cannot eat the Owerri soup.
Yes.
What's inside that soup?
It's not really what is inside the soup. It's the love, the perseverance that is used to make this Owerri. We use Oba and vegetable, and it doesn't need too much of fish, stockfish and all that. But what makes endears our people to it is the fact that it's cooked with a lot of love, and our people appreciate it. But it's a saying that makes people really get up and walk, get up and do something. And we use it to make ourselves happy and have some pride in our local dishes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
The good thing about this program is we learn as much as we have fun. And again, we have done it. I had fun and I've learned a whole lot. I don't know about you. Do join us again next week. We'll bring you another exciting personality. Meanwhile, I remain Elizabeth Abai. Bye for now.
Issues in the sports sector remain one of the most debated among Nigerians due to the passion, followership, government involvement, impact on Nigeria's external image and our national life in the sports parliament. The NTA offers Nigerians deep views on issues with experts in the sports sector, offering in-depth analysis, hindsight, insight and foresight towards elevating Nigerian sports to the zenith on the floor of the sports parliament. Sports Parliament, a unique platform for sports discussions, showing live on the NTA. Keep a day with the parliamentarians. We eyes have it.
Did you get to see the way
Tell him about the post this. Don't forget to send in your messages.
There's a difference between picking, child, and issue. That's really cool. The idea come electoral, that is the can do more with less people. If we have a better way of addressing these issues, taking care of... Congratulations, you were able to cite him over from RB Leipzig.
You take your water before you walk out.
Use that phone, you need to talk to those that a lot of people don't even have resources.
I'm Cecil, and this is the Medley Show on NTA.
NTA Tuesday Live, analytical, in-depth, educative and interactive on national issues, accommodating all sides of opinions.
We as a people have understood that we have to fight corruption before it fights us back.
Poverty has a financial index, so it should be fought also with a financial weapon. Give it to the social investments program. It has been a very courageous battle.
Tuesday Live, every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. Join us.
And there's the start again.
Mr. Sheriff, it's up that way.
Archbishop of basketball.
Hello and welcome to the news update at 11. I am Tessie Omeri. Nigeria Labour Congress and other organized labor movements in Lagos have commenced a 2-day peaceful protest to postpone their demand that the federal government should end the protracted strike embarked upon by the Academic Staff Union of Universities ASU 5 months ago. The protest march, which took off from Ikeja roundabout, is expected to terminate at the State House of Assembly and outside Ikeja. Meanwhile, personnel of the Nigerian police are on ground to provide security cover for the peaceful protest. 2 males and a female were released by the bandits at a location inside the forest along the Kaduna-Abuja highway. From there, they were picked up by their relatives. Meanwhile, relatives of other victims have picketed the headquarters of the Transportation Ministry in Abuja, demanding for more federal government intervention in the release of the remaining victims.
They are undergoing tremendous difficulty.
National Assembly is the Senate Committee on Agriculture. The Cassava Cottage Processing Marketing Association of Nigeria says more than 1
This is the network service of the NTA.
this week, my co-presenter Namdi Odipo is on an official assignment. On this week's edition, we will examine the recently released inflation figures by the National Bureau of Statistics. Nigeria's inflation rate recorded a fifth consecutive monthly rise to 18.6% last June, representing a 0.9% rise from the 17.71% it was in May 2022. This is said to be the highest since January 2017. And economists say one of the major drivers of inflation is high energy costs, and that the government should, as a matter of urgency, suspend all forms of taxes and levies on importation of petroleum products to give respite on the spiking energy cost. The report added that food inflation rose to 20.60% in June 2022. But the rate of changes in average price level declined by 1.23% when compared to 21.83% in June 2021. We will be analyzing the figures. Prison break is an unlawful act under the Nigerian law. It can also be described as a tax on Nigerian prisons services by criminals, in which many prisoners are released, often when this occurs. Efforts are made by the Nigerian Prisons Services in conjunction with security agencies to rearrest the escapees and return them to the prison, and this may result in the extension of their jail term. This practice in Nigeria is attributed to corruption and poor funding of the prison services. This is also on our plate in this week's edition of Insight. And trust me, you wouldn't want to miss our erudite guests. Once again, welcome to Insight.
I'm fascinated with the discourse on national monuments and assets and how much is being done to preserve and celebrate
the language issue. We have turned English to become like a pride value in our own cultural values.
Not cash transfer. It's not a COVID-19.
Invasion 1897 was a deliberate calculation.
Many of these people coming to the urban areas now.
These applications, there are terms and conditions.
Of course, it is the union of two people, a man and a woman coming together.
My name is Namdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori.
Nigeria's inflation rates in the month of June 2022 surged further to 18.6% compared to 17.71% recorded in the previous month. According to the recently released CPI report for the month of June 2022 by the National Bureau of Statistics, the nation's inflation rate moved to its highest level in 65 months in 5 years. The last time the inflation rate in Nigeria touched the 18.6% was in January 2017. Food inflation surged to 20.6% from 19.5%, mainly due to bread and cereals, as well as potato, yam, meat, fish, oil, and fat. The food and non-alcoholic beverages sub-index is by far the most important, accounting for nearly 50% of total weight compared to the previous month. Consumer prices increased by 1.82% after a 1.78% rise in May. What does this portend for our economy as the world grapples with the current economic realities? No thanks to COVID-19. My guest, Mr. Paul Alaje, an economist, will analyze the latest figures. Mr. Paul, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Yeah, thank you so very much for having me.
All right, Nigeria's inflation report recently released by the NBS is quite disturbing. What is really happening with global inflation?
Well, global inflation have continued to have uptick since the emergence or the beginning of the war between Russia and Ukraine. Recall that just before the world was just having a balance, so to speak, from COVID, where the world had experienced high inflation in about 2 years before 2022. That was 2020 to some part of 2021. And when we started experiencing some level of stability, a war broke out between Russia and Ukraine. These two countries, of course, they are in the eastern part of Europe. They pretend a lot of issues for the world because most of the global supply come from Russia and in some cases Ukraine. For instance, gas has been affected. Apart from what is happening between Russia and Ukraine, you also notice that as we speak, the demand for crude oil in China has continued to reduce as there is prolonged lockdown happening currently in China. But let's stay with the war, because what we have noticed is that because many countries depend solely on these two countries for their food imports, aka wheat and a few other things that the world is getting from either Russia or Ukraine, it continues to have negative impact on price index, especially if it has to do with food inflation. On the other part of inflation, which we call the core inflation, that is other things within the basket of consumer price index apart from food, they are also affected. Why? Because of energy. Energy is affected all over Africa. As we speak, the price of diesel has jumped from 300 to over 800 naira per liter. And Nigeria is not the only country affected, by the way, because in the world we are all connected. Inflation is increasing in Russia. Inflation is increasing even in America, is increasing almost everywhere. The question is, at what pace is inflation increasing, and who is going to be affected in terms of price, in terms of income, and also in terms of purchasing power of the people all over the world?
Okay, when we take a look at some of the numbers, they're quite scary on the report. At 18.6% for Nigeria and the US 9.1%. Shouldn't it be a cause for alarm?
Well, it's not just about complaining, it's about taking decisions. When you see pricing, average price going up, what we call inflation, it means there is no price stability. And there are decisions to be taken. So when Nigeria complain is fine, but complaint alone cannot solve the problem of inflation. So we need policy. We need policy, because I can tell you inflation have taken many people out of office. Do you want to talk of US, where inflation was going to be double at the time? The president of the country at that time was changed. Inflation is real issue. When people notice that their salary could no longer take them to work where they earn, they risk losing the job. And election day, they may take decision. We have also seen even in Nigeria, leaders that have increased pump price over the time, they hardly come back to office when you check Nigerian history. So prices and things that has to do with inflation has political implication. Then there must be policy. What kind of policy are we putting in place? This is the conversation we should have. When we say that the price of diesel is increasing, what does it mean for energy? What does it mean for production? What does it mean for manufacturers? It means that there will be cost push inflation. What you see Central Bank and the Monetary Policy Committee, what they've taken as decision is to review monetary policy rates so that they can control the demand, that's supply of money. But is that the real issue? What we have here goes beyond what monetary authority could do. It has to do everything with what Finance Ministry and Ministry of Trade and Investment could do. How do we support medium-scale enterprise? How do we support manufacturers? How do we support food processors to continue to produce so that output that we see that is continuing to reduce while demand remain the same, our population over 200 million, and it's still counting? How do we support people so that we have enough food, we have excess supply, then price could come down? But I'm afraid, I don't think that is what is happening today.
All right, before I take you on my next question, looks like every time there's inflation, price control is an issue. Why is this so? Can't there be a control? Can't we have regulation?
Yeah, well, there could be regulation, but regulation has its own limits so that we don't turn to a socialist state. When you say somebody bought a bag of rice, somebody sold a bag of rice in the market for 23,000 this time last year, but this year is selling the same rice for 31,000. The diesel the price of diesel at that time was 250, now is 830. 830 per liter. Definitely manufacturers or sellers will not sell the same rice at 23,000. Something has changed. Again, what was the price of paddy that formed rice? At what point in time was that rice sold? Was it harvest season? Was it the time where moisture content was high or moisture content was low? So there are lots of dynamics. So when government says it wants to regulate, like we have had with PMS, Government must be ready approximately 4 trillion naira of subsidy alone because it wants to maintain the price. So that in itself as a cost. Are we ready to pay the cost of our 8 trillion naira projection in revenue for federal government alone, and almost half of that money will go into subsidy? The remaining half may likely go into debt service. The question is, how will government pay? The question again is, how will government build infrastructure? So these are real issues. When you bring price control, then there is an issue. But if you don't bring price control, it doesn't mean there is no cost. There is even more cost, because the poor will be thrown at the mercy of new pricing. And I can tell you, that is what always leads to change in office, anybody that is in office part-time, because electorate will feel that our welfare, which is the purpose of government, which is protection of life and property, welfare to the people, our welfare has not been taken off. And most times, as a matter of fact, it might not really be the person in office does not want people to be better, but when policy direction does not support that to build the welfare of the people, I can tell you, eventually such person may be affected directly, as it has to do with politics.
Well, the report further explained that the rate of changes in food prices compared to the same period last year was higher due to the volatile nature of COVID-19. Well, I'm just thinking out loud. Are recovery plans not effective enough? Because it looks like COVID-19, the impact of COVID-19 is actually lingering, taking its toll drastically.
Yes, COVID-19 is still very much present, and I can tell you that the supply side shortage and supply shock, demand shock that happened in 2020 to the point of 2021 is still more present with us. But the fact with Nigeria is that it's not just COVID that is affecting us in that affected us in June 2022. We also had insurgents affecting our people. We have transport-related issues. Those that would have brought in vehicle to reduce the impact of shortage of vehicle in some areas. We have seen what happened at the ports. The prices, the clearing costs are since increased, and this is having tremendous impact even on the cost of importation of vehicle. That on one side. So most articulated vehicles, they run on diesel. You watch that. Why do we have scarcity of fuel almost perpetually in Abuja and some northern states? Meanwhile, fuel seems to be available in the southern state. The answer is simple. The cost of lifting that refined petroleum, refined PMS that we have in the south to the north and be sold at the same price is a lot of concern, because a liter, just 1 liter, which will not take you so much distance, is 830 naira. Who wants to do business when he knows that if you supply in Kogi and you supply in Sokoto, almost the same thing, marginal difference, and still want to continue such business? That is why we are seeing more and more people, more and more scarcity and more cars queuing up in the northern part of the country because of because of cost of diesel. So beyond COVID is a major factor. I agree with the MBS completely, but I'm also saying that there are other factors such as insecurity, the cost of energy. We cannot hide from energy. If anyone wants to tell Nigerians the truth, and indeed our leaders the truth, a government that will come and provide 3 things for our people. Number 1 is find substitutes. Find a substitute to importation of PMS, diesel, kerosene, and so on and so forth, and even gas. How do we produce this thing locally? We have the raw material locally. We need to put all energy in place to support government, and government to support the people by making this available. That is 1. 2, power supply. There is virtually nothing we can do in this world today without having power. And 3, quality education for our people, so that those, even though we have power, we have diesel, we have land, we have everything, if we don't have quality minds that can turn around this thing, I can tell you this will have tremendous impact. Of course, among other things like infrastructure that should be done, but these are key things, and I hope that we'll do them in no time.
Okay, the United States is also affected. For June, it is at 9.1. Obviously, you know, these figures do not lie, right? Now, let me take you back to the issue of Ukraine and Russia. The war is lingering. Yeah, the war is lingering, and then I understand that barley and wheat from Ukraine and Russia, most companies use their products. What does this portend for other economies?
Well, some of those countries have also banned the exports, and other countries that we could have gotten wheat and barley from around the world are conserving because of local inflation. They are saying you cannot sell anything you have must be sold locally.
Yes.
The implication is that countries that are not ready, they have started suffering. Thanks to Central Bank of Nigeria, even though a bit late, they have now started another program, like our borrowers program, to support local farmer, especially in the area of wheat. Most places where you have rice and sugarcane, you can also have wheat grow. So you can look at core northern part, north central of the country. These are areas where wheat will naturally grow, and it's very important for our manufacturing and processing sector within the country. So we have started seeing action of government in that regard, but will that be sufficient? Even when those who are farming makes output, are we able to refine? Are we able to process? Again, we go back to Central Bank of Nigeria and say there is need for USD, that's dollars. Why? So that we can import equipment and save our souls, save our lives by feeding ourselves and producing what we need. At that time, what will be the cost? And how fast are we going to be able to send funds to supplier, especially when we have them in Naira? So the war, let's assume that Ukraine eventually wins. What happens? Will Russia still be willing to trade with the rest of the world? I'm not sure if that will be immediate. If Russia wins, does it mean that those that turn their back against Russia will start smiling at them? I don't know. The only wisdom, which is what the leader in Japan mentioned at the time during COVID, is that countries should understand that there is a lie that has been sold, which is comparative cost advantage. Africa is competitive in terms of farming. Therefore, just farm, don't worry, we will process for you, you come back and import to us. I don't think that is a complete economics. I don't think that is complete truth. I think if Africa has competitive cost advantage, it should be within the value chain. So if we farm, we should be able to process, we should sell to ourselves and sell the rest of the world. That is what countries are doing. Other countries with oil, that is what they are doing. They are refining, selling refined crude to the rest of the world, and I believe Nigeria can do the same.
Some products will definitely go out.
Well, cost will decrease, and I think such products should not go out because the natural resource you need is already available in the country. That is first. Secondly, those that are working there, I can bet with you there are Africans that are Nigerians. Why can't we put in place where we make those things work? For instance, power supply. Number 2, equipment. Number 3, knowledge. Why can't we have entrepreneurs that can combine factors of production, natural resources, you may want to call that land, and name it raw materials and also labor and capital, be it phone, be it camera, be it the television that people are watching me from or watching us from today. The truth is, for every import, 3 decisions are taken. Number 1, you spend money to import, and that will deplete your foreign reserve. So people should not be too quick to blame central bank that will never continue to fall. It is because we are buying foreign products, and some of these products we don't have. The cameras, we don't have them in Nigeria. The kind of television we watch, we don't have them in Nigeria. Clothing that we have, we don't have them sufficiently in our country, so we have to import. That's a false decision. You lose money when the foreign reserve is affected. Number 2, they send the goods to you, you enjoy. But those are not the most important. The third one is that you lose job locally and you give job to the countries that is selling to you, because the moment, as soon as you continue, or the moment you continue to buy, or so long as you continue to buy for such country, you are stimulating their job markets. That means their supply is having demand, they are making profit, they are paying salaries, and more people in those countries will be engaged. If you come back home, National Bureau of Statistics says of our population in 2020, we have less than 70 million people that constitute labor force. Not all of them are employed. Of the close to 70 million, 33.1%. As at the fourth quarter 2020, they are underemployed. You also have over 50% youth unemployment. So don't be surprised that you are seeing banditry, you are seeing kidnapping, because the idle hand is the devil's workshop. If you check devil's workshop, it doesn't have television there. What you have is machetes, guns, grenades to attack people. And the only way we can stop that is when we understand that instead of us exporting raw materials, we need to refine those crude, those maybe raw rice or whatever we have in our country, refine them, then sell finished product to guarantee job locally and also to stimulate our job market within our country.
You know, like 2-3 weeks ago, the MSME Summit held 2-3 weeks ago. Couple of issues were raised, from capital insecurity, development of local content. Now, with this latest development, capital is an issue. How do we help our entrepreneurs, willing entrepreneurs that are really ready to grow the economy?
Well, I think government should come.
This is quite discouraging at this time.
Well, not just capital, even the quality of money that forms the capital is ridiculous. Anybody that earns 200,000 naira 2 years ago, you are no longer earning 200,000. What you earn is about 120,000 naira. So quality of money is disappearing fast, and it is currency. It is currency like current. If you don't manage it well, if you don't improve the value, it will be flowing away, and that's what many people are experiencing. That is why we are losing a lot of professionals to other countries. It's not like going to other countries to say don't employ your neighbor. They know that if they pay them $1,000 abroad, it's equivalent parallel market of 600,000 naira. And at home, they are working, they are giving their best, and they are collecting 200,000 naira. They were comfortable until they knew that if they cross the sea to the other part, that 200,000 will suddenly multiply by 3. Yes, they will send some money abroad, but the truth is, so long as they live in that economy, they will pay rent there, they will take transport there, they will eat there, they are stimulating the GDP of that country. What we need to do today is how do we build this economy and make it robust? And I tell you, we have a lot of work to do by looking at the critical sector in our economy and building it for the country, for the economy, to also help the citizen and make them much better than we are today.
You know, since the report came out last week, we've had several debates on this issue, 18.6, and then someone raised the issue of foreign investment, investors coming in. It is quite discouraging at this point. What's your take?
Well, in the last 2 years, I think from 2019, we have seen consistent reduction in foreign investment. And again, that goes to factors that we either attract or repel foreign investors. The first and the front burner is not security, it is the quality of money. And I give you an instance. In 2019 or 2014, what was exchange rate? At that time, we said it was really bad. Parallel market was over 200 naira, about 250. And at the other side, at 2014, 2015, at the official rate was 190, later 199. And we said, this is worse. Today, it was as though that was the best. Even though that will not make it right. Today we are seeing official rate at over 400 naira, more than double, and parallel market at over 600 naira. The question is, so if an investor came in 2019, has done business in Nigeria, he now wants to go back to his or her country and wants to exchange his or her money, what do you get? You get half of the value of what you brought by committing no crime. That means the quality of money can actually make people poorer. If they are hardworking, they can become poor. So we need to do something about quality of money, and I have suggested to government that what I think we should do, among other reasons, and this is not just one thing I'd say we go to rest. This is our economy. We all need to work on it. We need to find a way to redenominate our currency. That does not mean it will guarantee solution or permanent solution and boost output as soon as you redenominate. And I think that's one of the things that we need to talk about. Again, it appears as though we have legitimized, quote and unquote, or we are quiet about using dollar as medium of exchange. Yes, it's going to be difficult for government to outrightly ban the use of dollar because there are some sectors and some industry where that is the order of the day. That's what you must use. If not, the people will become relatively stranded. But what must we do? What we must do, therefore, is to encourage people to export. Because if you don't export, there is just no way you are going to have import. And you asked me again about SME the other time, and I think that government needs to come up with a program very quickly. I've seen effort of government to help people that are poor by giving them 5,000 and 10,000 naira, and we have seen that has really supported in a way the people, but it has not taken people out of poverty, because poverty now is still quite high. So even though we are not seeing a lot of people joining the poverty bracket, but we are saying we have not also seen a lot of people leaving poverty bracket. So but while government continues such program, what can we do for entrepreneurs who would actually help us mop up poor people, who would also help us to leave some people out of poverty, maybe by giving them job or by training and so on and so forth. I've seen so many other programs government have done. Some of them are really fantastic, but for those who can employ 1, 2, 3, 4 people and capital is their problem, we may need to design a program that will provide finances in their hand, maybe not cash, maybe by giving them the materials they need so that they can employ these people in real time, and we can see reduction in unemployment, see reduction in people that are out of job and people that are jobless, and we can start seeing growth. The growth will not just be nominal growth, but real growth, and also it will be domesticated within the villages, the area, states, local government in our country all over.
Wow, interesting. Now, you know, the pressure is quite on how the pressure on household budgets is actually unbearable. so many households can't really have 3 meals per day. But with the latest figures by NBS, what do we do? How do we come out of this? How can households be helped?
Well, household needs to be more innovative. First of all, men that think their wife should not work, I think they should have a rethink. You cannot carry the load of the entire world and stand on one leg. The woman is not different from you simply because you are men and you are broad shoulder and you think the woman should not work. So I am saying that for you to ease what you're doing, even if you say your wife should not work, you might set up a small business so that something in the addition come in for the family, because at the end of the day, it is about your family, how much you earn. The reasons for infidelity, and this is not the only reason, but one of the reasons for infidelity and divorce that is on the increase, and statistics has backed this up, is not that love disappeared within the family, but when hunger comes, you see, there is an analogy in an African analogy that says when hunger enters a person, I can tell you that it can chase away every other thing. And when hunger leaves, they said the poverty concerns has been drastically reduced. So how do we reduce the concern of poverty among our people and ensure that people have maybe other concerns? They may have to do with education, they may have to do with transport, but that they are able to eat. So this number is saying that things were relatively more expensive June this year compared to June last year. And do I think the number will start reducing? Even if it reduces, it won't be sporadic. You might not feel the impact immediately because it took time to build to this point. Therefore, how do you earn income? And this is what I tell people: 9 to 5 is not enough. What are you doing 5 to 9? Your 9 to 5 is not enough. What are you doing 5 to 9? That is, if you check outside Nigeria, where many of our people wants to go to get job, they don't do one job, you know. But here, because of power supply, I understand. But what again can you do? Even if you are a teacher, can you sew when you go back home? Just to cushion the effect, just to cushion the impact of this of what you are going through today. We need to learn something. We've seen women very innovative. They are selling things here and there. So how to increase your capacity to earn is just the way to go. And I hope that they are useful tips for us as families.
All right, aside the family, I need to get words from you as a critical player in our economy. Let me take you on the issue of financial institutions. Now, there's the borrowing policy, actually, with the inflation rate coming up. What do you see? What scenario do you see in terms of giving out capital or loans to people?
Well, someone once asked me that what is the cost of borrowing in the bank? And I said, it is your ability to bring collateral. The challenge many people have by not borrowing, and financial institutions also have, in giving funds, capital to people. And I'm talking of commercial bank and some microfinance. The challenge has been credit rating. Many people want to collect loan, but because the banks are not spiritual, quote and unquote, they will not know, because they've had many bad experiences of people that collected funds are not able to pay back, and some have collected funds. If it's through one government program, they believe, don't worry, it is government money, we can spend it. So commercial bank therefore ask people to bring unimaginable things, and for the sake of just speaking, somebody said they asked him to bring his mother's grave, you know, but that is not literal. So they ask people to bring all manner of things just for the bank to be secure. And if I can tell you the truth, it is not your collateral bank needs. From my experience with financial institution, ability to pay back is the first thing. So because they are not sure you will pay back, they will now say bring collateral. And the kind of collateral is such that even if you don't pay back, what you are giving them worth about 150% of the monies that you have collected. So that is why it's a bit complex. And I think that government signed an executive order for collateralization. I don't know how much that has been implemented, but it was a right direction. So how do we ensure that our people voluntarily go for credit rating? The truth is, economy that will grow, and most large economy we are seeing all around the world with huge GDP, huge capital income, they play on credit. For us, if you want to buy a house, Nigeria pay cash down. Buy a car, pay cash down. Such economy cannot be as robust as we expect it to be, because the other monies would have been used to do other things and would have grown other economic activity. But trust became a major issue, and I can tell you, trust can be transferred in politics, in economy, in business, in family, in schools, in education, everything you do. How do we build general trust so that even though banks are saying that their interest is less than 30%, but to get the money even at 30%, how easy will it be? Trust becomes the issue that we need to solve.
So we need to solve our trust problems. Mr. Paul Alaje, thank you so much for coming on the program to enlighten us on the issue before us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Amina Mohammed, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala.
Agencies and stakeholders to proactively tackle these challenges.
Women in most countries of the world constitute about 50% of registered voters. Williams, reporting for Dateline 360.
Jones, Caleb Gochin, Dateline 360.
Naja Atitijani.
Like 360. Chidi Okrafo.
For Dateline 360.
In Lagos, Michael Olaleye.
Reporting for Dateline 360. I am Omosola Omojola. Thanks for tuning in to Dateline 360.
Structure of prisons and how difficult it is to attack them. Recently, custodial facilities across the country have witnessed violent attacks with thousands of inmates unlawfully released, and this has contributed to the myriad of challenges facing our security architecture. Multiple reports reveal that in 12 years, there have been 5 jailbreaks. What does this portend for our security and society? And what are the issues responsible for persistent attacks on correctional facilities? On this segment, my guest, Mahmoud Yusuf, a legal practitioner and programs manager, Network of University Legal Aid Institution, will deal on the issue. Mr. Yusuf, thank you so much for joining us on Insight.
Thank you very much for having me.
You heard me correctly, 12 jailbreaks in 5 years. This is quite disturbing. What could be responsible for this?
So, over the past 5 years that you've mentioned, I think we see that there's a growing incidence of insecurity around the country. We have issues with Boko Haram. We have secessionists. We have the IPOB, and these are really security threats that are waiting to happen. And you also have the issue with the correctional facilities being overcrowded, and this constitutes also an in-house security breach, not just for the society but within that facility. It breeds unrest. It breeds indoctrination, where you have people who are charged with minor offenses kept with people who are charged with terrorism, homicide cases, kidnapping. So that tends to kind of indoctrinate people who ordinarily shouldn't be there, and you see they spend 5-7 years without trial. So that is really an issue outside the external security challenges that we have around the country.
Talking about breaches, how would you rate architectural structures of our correctional centers?
Most of the correctional facilities you have that have been breached, if you look at the period they were built, you see they date back to the colonial era. You talk about Benin, you talk about Jos, you talk about Ondo, where Ondo was a recent development in the 2000s, and then you talk about other facilities that have been breached. You talk about Imo. These centers were built not with the present circumstances in consideration, and then you have them, the location they are, you see they are located in the center of town, and there's activity going on around there. You see markets, you see roads. There's no way you can restrict people from getting close to that. So that in and of itself is it's a security threat based on that architecture. You are supposed to ordinarily have buffers where before you get to the facility there are certain checks. What are you going to do around there? I will give example of Suleja. Suleja is just in the middle of the town. You have the Emir's Palace, you have a market, you have a stream by the side. So that is a recipe for disaster. If for God forbid the Suleja is targeted, you just have to cross a little stream and then you get access to the facility. So I think there is a fundamental issue with not just how the facilities are built or the time they were built, but also where these facilities are located. You don't really have a segregation where you say this place is a category for terrorists. This place you categorize this to house terrorists, you categorize this to have condemned inmates or lifers or convicted, as it were, but you mix everybody in the general population. So that in and of itself is a major flaw. You are supposed to, a custodial center or a facility is supposed to serve a purpose, the purpose of rehabilitation. You can't rehabilitate pretrial detainees because they are not being sentenced. So your focus remains only on the convicted or the condemned, the convicted detainees, and then it is outside of the correctional services mandate to provide rehabilitation services to inmates who are waiting trial. Ordinarily, you are presumed innocent until a court presumes finds you guilty of an offense. So in that instance, the service cannot be extended to pretrial detainees. So that is a major flaw in the architecture of the design of the custodial centers.
All right, it means from your explanation, categorization is missing, which is quite dangerous for the inmates, because we have terrorists, we have persons with minor cases and all that. Now, I want to believe jailbreaks do not just happen. There's always a compromise within the walls. In curtailing this practice, how do we guarantee the commitment of officers within the walls?
So this situation is still evolving. So I wouldn't be charitable if I confirm that yes, there has been connivance from the inside. It's still an evolving situation, and we from the preliminary information we're getting, it's terrorists from the outside that had attacked the facility. My take would be you had people who were in the inside. Maybe they were released and they understand the architecture of the people of the facility, and there are people who they believe, we want to get these people out. Like it's been stated that the ISWAP has claimed responsibility for the attack. Then also, when you talk about recruitment, there is a major flaw in how in the recruitment processes, chiefly because people are not the training. Unfortunately, the training is not at par with what we have on ground now. So you need to develop a training for officers who would be in these custodial centers, who would be in charge of these inmates, depending on the category of they are. How do we deal with these people? How do we interact with these people? So that's one. Then also you talk about to talk about connivance from the inside. I'll give example with Kuje. You have a heavy military presence in Kuje. I believe the only security personnel that are not there are from the Navy, but you have the Army, you have the police, you have the civil defense, and and then also the armed squad of the correctional service. So this is really something that they need to seriously take into consideration, not only during recruitment, but
70 to 75% in all custodial centers. This means there is delay in our criminal justice system. How do we correct?
Raise that point. If we keep saying the corrections is the correctional service is to blame for, we understand that they are just receptors. So a court gives a lawful order for a suspect to be remanded in custody. And in 2015, the Administration of Criminal Justice Act was passed under the administration of the President Goodluck Jonathan, and it had innovative provisions. And one of the main provisions it had was to look at to put time protocols on the and put a limit to the time as to how you can keep a person in detention. So you have a maximum of about 56 days, within which, if you are not, or any prosecuting agency who seeks acquires a remand order for a suspect to be detained in a correctional facility, if you're not able to conclude your investigation within that time, and then also show that the suspect has a prima facie case to answer, then the law mandates that this suspect should be released until and when you have sufficient evidence to bring that case against him. But the courts are overwhelmed. You find out that you go to court, and a court has almost 100 cases to deal with, and they just keep adjourning these cases, and then you see that the return dates will be 3 months, 6 months, and sometimes, due to the infrastructural challenges that you have and the logistic challenges you have with the custodial centers, they don't have sufficient vehicles to take these detainees to court, so it also brings a clog in the wheel. So I believe that the overuse of detention, pretrial detention, is a recipe for disaster. There must be a way that we look at other diversionary charge a person, and you see there's admit this person to bail, so that the person can from home or wherever he is coming from, attend his trial. And then when you find this person guilty, then lawfully you can send that person to detention. But this is not the case. We just the remand processes and the remand procedures are abused flagrantly, especially by prosecuting agencies.
All right, let's take a cue again from the recent Kuje jailbreak. It seems scary, and so many inmates we hear are still lurking. Are we safe? And how do we guarantee our safety at this time?
So it's really scary. I stay on the around the airport road, and it's a real worry, because you see there are a lot of this, and you have this at the back of your mind, that there are about 440, a little over 400 people that are still at large from that incident in Kuje, and you live with people who ordinarily you don't know where they come from, and it's really a scary situation. But the correctional service has been proactive in releasing the information and stability, not just for security agencies but also for citizens. When you see these people, because I know last week it was widely shared pictures of these detainees that were that had escaped, and thankfully a number of them are voluntarily, as I understand, a number of them have voluntarily returned, and then some of they are still on their heels. So I believe if they are able to leverage on technology, and one other issue, which is intelligence gathering, I believe all these people would be identified and taken back to lawful custody. I'll just hazard a guess from experience. Intelligence gathering is not where it should be in Nigeria, not only relating to jailbreaks but security generally. We tend to be more reactionary than reactive than we are proactive. So we had in the last year we had Imo, we had in the past 2 years we've had Edo, we've had Oyo, we've had Ondo, we've had Imo, we had recently in November we had Jos. I believe that with the way this the jailbreaks were coordinated and happening, I believe that the correctional service should have been more proactive in beefing up security in across all the facilities, and also work with other sister agencies in intelligence gathering. It's really a disservice that Kuje happened. I believe we need to up our game in intelligence gathering across all specters of our national life, especially as it relates to security, with the way we with the trajectory of security insecurity we're having in the country at the moment. So I believe intelligence gathering, it leaves much to be desired in Nigeria at the moment.
All right, amidst global security threats, nations are grappling with several issues concerning security. How do we put an end to this? Because this looks like it's common in our climate.
So this needs a concerted effort. So if you look at issues around insecurity in Nigeria, especially, you have banditry, you have the issue of the Boko Haram, you have other security issues. If you look at them critically, you see there's a cross-border coloration to it. If you talk about banditry, it has to do with cross-border. You look at people coming in from Niger and Chad. If you go to Boko Haram, you see its insurgents coming in from the Sahel causes of this, and then also try to strengthen the securities around our borders, because our borders are really porous, and the fear for me now is once we are not able to get back these people, this about 5,000 people over cumulatively that have escaped lawful custody over the past years. There's no we live with them, they go and then they get hardened and they come back and it comes to bite us. So I believe we need to strengthen a security around our border. We need more intelligence gathering, and we also need to be proactive in addressing the security challenges.
You need to be proactive in addressing legal aid institution. Thank you so much for joining us on Insight this week.
Thank you very much, and it's always a pleasure joining you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And that's Insight this week. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, shun violence always and be patriotic. I'm Elizabeth Omori. We'll see you next week.
NTA Tuesday Live, analytical, in-depth, educative and interactive on national issues, accommodating all sides of opinions.
We as a people have understood that we have to fight corruption before it fights us back.
Poverty has a financial index, so it should be fought also with a financial weapon. Give it to the social investments program. It has been a very courageous battle.
Tuesday Live, every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. Join us.
Did you get to see the way telling about the post this? Don't forget to send in your messages.
There's a difference between picking, child, and issue. It's actually cool. The idea that is the and do more with less people. If we have a better way of addressing these issues, taking care of... Congratulations, you were able to sign Timo Werner from RB Leipzig.
You take water before your workout.
Use that phone, you need to talk to those that a lot of people don't even have resources.
You can't even hear the sound of a couple. I'm Cecil, and this is the Medley Show on NTA.
Especially on the social media.
My job is to go out there and comb for factual news and information, just the way it is, all in the interest of the nation. I'm Naja'atu Tijani.
Here the NTA will present only the facts, verified. Beware of fake news, don't be a victim. Stay tuned to the NTA.
Especially at this time of the coronavirus pandemic.
My name is Nnamdi Ochipo.
Issues in the sports sector remain one of the most debated among Nigerians due to the passion, followership, government involvement, impact on Nigeria's external image and our national life in the sports parliament. The NTA offers Nigerians deep views on issues with experts in the sports sector, offering in-depth analysis, hindsight, insight and foresight towards elevating Nigerian sports to the zenith on the floor of the sports parliament. Sports Parliament, a unique platform for sports discussions, showing live on the NTA. Keep a day with the parliamentarians.
Who else had it?
NTA, you can't reach.
And there's a start. Sheriff, it's up that way.
Archbishop of basketball! Yo! He hung on that net like a stalk up a tree! NTA Sports 24 brings you all sports, all time.
The nation got a fair warning about the likelihood of flash floods. As a major coastal state, Lagos was referenced in a number of these weather forecasts. The last few weeks have witnessed torrential rainfall, which has led to parts of the state being flooded, with pictures of near disaster emerging. 2 people were declared missing by emergency responders on Saturday, July 9 this year, after 2 vehicles were swept away by flood in Oyatoki area of Orile Agege in Lagos. The fact that the situation could get worse as the rainy season peaks is worrisome. This explains why our focus on this edition of Panorama will be on flood prevention and management in Lagos State. Don't forget that you can follow this news broadcast live on our website at nta.ng/live and on YouTube at NTA News Online. You can also visit our Facebook page at NTA Network News, our Twitter handle at NTA News Now, and on Instagram at NTA Network for updates. I am Adeola Komiakere. Welcome to Panorama. We'll begin with the NLC. The Nigerian Labour Congress and other organized labour movements in Lagos have commenced a 2-day peaceful protest to press home their demand that the federal government should end the protracted strike embarked upon by the Academic Staff Union of Universities ASU 5 months ago. The protest march, which took off from Ikeja roundabout, is expected to terminate at the State House of Assembly, Alausa, Ikeja. Meanwhile, personnel of the Nigeria Police are on ground to provide security cover for the peaceful protesters. The NLC leadership had few days ago sent out circulars to their state chapters notifying them of a nationwide protest which kicks off on Tuesday, 26 July 2022. The protest is to compel the federal government to resolve all lingering issues to reopen universities for academic activities. Now, 3 victims of the abducted Abuja to Kaduna train have been released. The victims, 2 males and a female, were released by the bandits at a location inside the forest along the Kaduna-Abuja highway. From there, they were picked up by their relatives. With the release of the 3 victims, the number of those still in captivity remained 40. President Muhammadu Buhari departs Abuja Tuesday for Monrovia, Liberia, to attend the 175th Independence Anniversary celebrations of the country. The president, who will be the special guest of honor at the event, joins other world leaders and organizations to rejoice with the people of Liberia at the event with the theme, Fostering Unity, Protecting Our Peace for Development and Prosperity. A statement signed by Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, notes the leading role played by Nigeria in the stabilization of a West African nation in the early 90s, leading to the establishment of democratic rule, and has President Buhari was conferred with the highest national honor in the country, the Grand Cordon, which is the most venerable order of knighthood of the pioneers of the Republic of Liberia, in recognition of Nigeria's continued support towards the development of the country. President Buhari is expected to stress the importance of the respect for rule of law throughout the sub-region. Peace and security of Liberia and Sierra Leone is important to Nigeria, given the enormous investment in men, materials, and resources expended by this country to secure the 2 states. Bilaterally, Nigeria and Liberia must bring to the table issues of cross-border terrorism, bolstering defense and trade ties. President Buhari will be accompanied on the trip by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyema, and Director General, National Intelligence Agency, Ambassador Ahmed Rufai Abubakar, and is expected back in the country later today. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari granted audience to the outgoing president of the ECOWAS Commission, Jean-Claude Cassibro, on Monday, thanking him for the role he played in ensuring that the sub-regional body remains united, responsible, and responsive. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
The outgoing president of the ECOWAS Commission, Jean-Claude Cassibro, was in the State House to bid farewell to President Muhammadu Buhari as his 4-year tenure comes to an end. He thanked the Nigerian leader for his unprecedented support to the sub-regional organization, particularly at a time of great challenges like COVID-19 and political instability in some West African countries. He also lauded all ECOWAS leaders as well as Nigerian ministers who made his tour of duty a successful one. President Muhammadu Buhari noted that despite the challenges of insecurity and political tension in some countries, the ECOWAS president and his team showed capacity and patience in dealing with all the issues. Jean-Claude Cassibro, he said, demonstrated great commitment to the unity of ECOWAS and of the sub-region, describing his tenure as very successful. President Buhari hoped that Bro's successor would study what made him succeed for the good of the sub-regional body. Jean-Claude Cassibro, an Ivorian politician and economist, served as Minister of Industry and Mines before his appointment as President of the ECOWAS Commission in March 2018. He is succeeded by Dr. Umar Aliyu of the Gambia. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
Now let's talk the environment. It's no longer news that lives were lost and properties submerged following the downpour in Lagos on Saturday, July 9, 2022. Annie Daniels reports that residents still live with the fear that they may lose more as long as the rains persist.
Makoko community is not only a densely populated area of Lagos, but has canals all around it, gaining access into more thanks to the rains.
Where is the gutter we have so that when we are flushing, the water will go through the gutter, but even all the gutters they do is blocked. When gutter is down, the house is up.
Within last week, just in that the water is coming from the ground.
What is this night?
We'll go and sleep another person's house.
Several hours after the rains, the floods are still visible and residents are still counting their losses.
And some people were not even around. So it enters their room, TV, spoils so many electronics and...
Young and old, nobody is exempted from pains of the previous day's rains.
I don't know how to take walk, and if I still see my white and my shoe.
These canals are supposed to make movements of flood easy, but that seems not to be the case.
Lagos promised us that they'll come and do the canal, always enter the canal. So we are still waiting for the government to come and do that.
Until that happens, Lagosians are sure they will in Lagos. Annie Daniels, NTA News.
To manage it is a climatologist and environmentalist, Professor Emmanuel Oladipo. He joins me, Ladin.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Nigerians.
Okay, Prof. Experts believe
the world, the globe, is moving through what they call a global warming system.
We took a quick...
Can you hear me now?
The news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous. Whether you do it for fun or for political gains, real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
Speaking to Professor Emmanuel. It's okay. It's
yes, but let me just quickly see what I have to say before we lose it again. The continuous development of the usual wetlands and other drainage areas will continue to build houses. And at the same time, the rain will continue to fall.
Yeah.
So how do we do it? I think what is important, somebody, when you are showing that documentary, said it very clearly. Government said we are going to do this, and they never came back. That is what is compounding the government of Lagos State need to sit down, put together a very, very high level technical experts made up of engineers, environmentalists, work managers and everything, and look at the original map of Lagos and some of the areas, organize these channels, but what Lagos should do by which of the landowners will be compensated, but development will be done by comprehensively supporting land vertically, rather than 10 acres or 20 bungalows, other forms of things. Until we do that, and the only way the water we do is to carry both the land, houses, and the people to whatever destination it wants. There's nothing you can do. The water is so powerful. If you see some houses, they just become like paper when the water is rushing in. And I think we have to accept that as a part of life, that we must work together and develop Lagos in a comprehensive, environment-friendly, climate-resilient manner for our sustainable existence and development.
Let's talk about the climate change. Extreme weather events are inevitable, which is why environmentalists like yourself are advocating sustainable drainage systems, like you mentioned. How feasible is this option?
The purpose of understanding the extreme event is to enable us to determine what should be our measures to adapt. As I said, there's nothing we can do about these extreme events coming up now.
Yeah.
So what is important is we must be able to adapt, and many countries are doing it. A country like Netherlands, as I keep on giving as an example, is about 30% below sea level. And they are developing, they are making sure that their areas are not consistently flooded. So there's nothing possible, but it requires a comprehensive approach, a long-term strategy, a long-term roadmap, a long-term plan that will be executed by the government, whichever government, political party is in power. Flood is a common problem. Flood does not know whether it passes through a house occupied by PDP or APC or DPP. It doesn't matter.
Okay,
Prof. Not even through the Lagos. All which regards is I'm passing through a land and I must have my way. Exactly. So the people have to say, I'm ready for you, and this is what I want to do to contain and reduce your impact on my life and property.
All right, Prof, with the situation of Lagos just 2 meters above the sea level, it is critical that we maintain a natural environmental defense system. Are we doing a good job of that along our coastlines?
No. You can see that this is again leads to the lack of integrated coastal zone management for the whole of the coastal area of Nigeria, and for Lagos in particular. If you look at what is happening in the Atlantic, for instance, there's a concern that the dredging and the sand filling for the development of Atlantic may be creating some upstream challenges to Goshen estate and all the rest. So we need this comprehensive understanding. Let us understand exactly how the natural system function in Lagos and its environment. If we understand it, then we understand, okay, how far have we disrupted the natural functionality?
I need to cut you here, Prof. I need to cut you here, Prof. Now you have made mention of what government should do and not do. Now, how can individual efforts of residents assist in flood prevention and management?
Okay. The major challenge in Lagos is the way we dump this refuse. And it's not done by the water, it's done by individuals. Mm-hmm. So we have to really accept, even when we have open drainages and canals, they should not be seen as waste dumps. They should be seen as ways of sustaining us, because if we dump the waste and we clog the drainages, when the rains come, the water will spread over areas which the canal will have prevented. So individuals in Lagos have to accept that waste dumping through these canals, through these open drainages, is the most dangerous thing they are doing to themselves, and it will continue to be. If you look at Makopo area and all the rest, many of them don't even bother to pay for waste disposal. But this is where, again, there's nothing we can do in Nigeria, as far as I'm concerned. We as Nigerians, we don't like to do things unless we are more or less forced to do it. I think government needs to move in now and become very strict about how this waste dumping. Anywhere they see waste every day, people are penalized. And they must create means by which people, a lot of these waste dumps that they put on the road and get overspent over a period of time, create more interest for people to say, the one I dumped last week is still there. So let me just do this into the canal. I think government and the people, again, mobilization. The way mobilize ourselves for political meetings, let's mobilize for environmental management so that everybody will be aware. And for those that refuse to be aware, they be penalized as necessary.
Thank you very much, Professor Emmanuel Oladipo, for your thoughts on flooding in Lagos State and how to prevent flooding. And let me also thank you for appreciating the NTA for what they are doing as it regards environment matters. Thank you for your time once again, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Now it's time for us to take some sports news.
The Super Falcons of Nigeria arrived the country after finishing fourth at the just concluded Africa Women Cup of Nations in Morocco. The 9-time champions, who lost to Zambia ladies by a 0-0 in the third place match, arrived the country Monday afternoon with 15 players, while the other players have since returned to their various club sites. Still on football, focus on building capacity and professionalism in the running of football academies. The resource persons from Green Sports Africa, who had organized a similar session in some other African countries, say for young African footballers to fulfill their dreams, the gap between talent and opportunity must be bridged with sustainable structures like standard training facilities and scientific training methods.
In terms of the playing, we need methodologies that say this is the way we play, this is how we want a player to look at the end of the development cycle. Talent and just with the grassroots, as a grassroots football coaches here have discussed, we have a common interest of elevating the game.
Team Nigeria emerged winner of the 11th edition of the African Arm Wrestling Championship, which ended over the weekend at the National Stadium, Lagos. Nigeria won 27 gold, 27 silver, and ended with third place. With the next plan of our agenda is to be at the sport festival in Lagos anytime in the year as demonstration sport. To extreme sports, the annual BMX Day is held at the National Stadium, Lagos, to promote young talent in extreme sports in the country. For the organizers, the event, which featured BMX riders and roller skaters, created a platform to popularize the sport.
To get to that platform where we have a professional competition for each categories, be it BMXing, be it skateboarding, and be it online skating.
NTA News.
To connect with the NTA to stand against rape and rapists. Enjoy the rest of your day. I am Adeola Komiakiri.
NTA, you can't be Deutsch.
Who would like to drive in the rain?
It depends on the velocity of the rain.
There's a start. It's up that way. Archbishop of basketball.
He hung on that net like a stalk up a tree. NTA Sports 24 brings you all sports, all time and all day. Tune in to watch NTA Sports 24 on Star Times Channel 270, Star Sat on Channel 434, Free TV on Channel 731. NTA Sports 24, where sports thrive.
NTA Tuesday Live, analytical, in-depth, educative and interactive on national issues accommodating all sides of opinions.
We as a people have understood that we have to fight corruption before it fights us back.
Poverty has a financial index, so it should be fought also with a financial weapon. Give it to the social investments program. It has been a very courageous battle.
Tuesday Live, every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. Join us.
I'm actually a passionate baker. I don't rest until everything is done.
When I entered university, anytime I'm broke, I'll make cupcakes and go and sell to the other students.
Decorating cake is an artistic thing, and art is, dynamic.
Join us on Baker's World every Thursday on the network service of the NTA. Baker's World, celebrating creativity. Don't miss it.
This is the network service of the NTA.